Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of Sean's Movie Crusades. My name is Sean Wasserkrug, and today we're going to be reviewing the 2020 version of the classic horror tale, The Invisible Man. Apologies for my voice sounding a little bit different. I am dealing with a very, very bad sinus infection / cold, so I'm trying to talk a little bit soothier, I guess, to not cause myself into a coughing fit. Maybe you guys might like this voice. I don't know. But we are reviewing The Invisible Man today. Now, for me personally, I wasn't really excited to see this movie. And the reason being is that when Universal tried to do their whole reboot a couple years back with The Mummy, they had all this, like, we're going to make a dark Universal Monsterverse and all this, and it fell flat on its face. And I believe The Invisible Man was supposed to be played by Johnny Depp at the time. This is not that. This is not them continuing with that franchise. This is literally just its own separate movie with a different cast, different mindset. It's just its own small little film. Now, me personally, I've never seen the original Invisible Man. I know it's a classic that I definitely should check out, and I know it spawned off sequels. I did see Kevin Bacon's Hollow Man back in the 90s. Don't judge me. So that was really my only real introduction to an Invisible Man kind of film outside of like stuff you see like in The Predator and stuff like that. But yeah, it was just, when I heard about this, I just generally wasn't really excited for it. It just looked like another one of the generic horror films that come out at the beginning of the year that tend to not be very good. But then you started to see some of the cast, the director being announced for it, and it started to make me feel a little bit more in a positive end. First thing first, Lee Whannell being cast as the director. I'm a huge fan of Lee Whannell. Most people might know him as the writer from the first Saw movie. He's also one of the main characters in the first Saw film. But he's finally started doing directing. I believe this is his this is his third directorial film. He did Insidious Chapter 3, which I hadn't checked out, but I might want to now. But he also did one of my favorite films and most surprising films of 2018, Upgrade, which is what Venom should have been. And anyone who has not seen Upgrade, go out of your way to check that out, because that is a fantastic sci-fi film. But knowing that we have Lee Whannell's eye on this film, it definitely made me feel more comfortable with what we were going to see and how the visuals and the angles of how the camera was going to work definitely made me feel a little more positive towards it. Then they casted Elizabeth Moss as the main character. Now, anyone who's been watching any kind of TV over the past few years knows that Elizabeth Moss has been killing it in Handmaid's Tale. So there's a lot of huge fans out there for Elizabeth Moss, and she really hasn't had much of a movie where it's just her being the main actor / actress in the film. So this is kind of her real shot, personally, to kind of come out and say, hey, this is me. I can do more than just TV. So there's really a lot riding on this film. Personally, the first few reviews coming out have been very positive for it. So I kind of actually ended up going into it with a little bit more of anticipation because of those things. But the trailer itself wasn't necessarily selling me too much, but I was hoping that maybe with the cast and crew behind this, that maybe it would sway me in a different way. So let's go ahead and jump into the review and see exactly what I thought of 2020's Invisible Man. Now, the main plot going into Invisible Man is it follows Cecilia Cass, played by Elizabeth Moss, and she's basically been a prisoner in her own relationship for at least 3 years. She's been dating this billionaire ocular tech guy. His name's Adrian Griffin. He's played by Oliver Jackson Cohen. Many people know him from The Haunting of Hill House. And basically, we don't really get to see the relationship. We just kind of hear it in like little sentences here and there throughout the film. But it sounds like it's been an emotional, abusive, psychological a relationship where she is literally 100% controlled and the prisoner of Adrian. The movie starts with Cecilia basically finally coming to terms and taking ownership and finally trying to escape the clutches of Adrian, which, while she does succeed in that, she basically gets away from Adrian and hides out at a childhood friend's house, played by Aldous Hodge, who goes by James. 2 weeks pass, and her sister, Emily, played by Harriet Dyer, basically tells her that Adrian has committed suicide, and that he left her $5 million. So thus, she has to come out of hiding to basically accept the money, and that's where the real cat and mouse game begins. Stuff starts happening around where she's living. Excuse me, where she's living. That basically could only happen if Adrian was there. Certain things go missing. Certain things happen that she's getting blamed for that she did not do, and she's pretty much right up to the task of knowing that it's Adrian. But the problem is that it's very hard to tell people to say my now dead ex-boyfriend is doing this. And so it comes to more of a psychological kind of game between Adrian and Cecilia, because there's a lot of gaslighting going on, which people who don't know what gaslighting means, that's basically a psychological torture to try to make everyone think that you're going insane. I apologize if I had to explain that, but a lot of people don't know what gaslighting means. But yeah, that's basically the plot. Is Cecilia basically trying to have to deal with Adrian coming back into her life and making her life hell, and that's basically the general plot of Invisible Man. Now, what works with Invisible Man is a lot of it, actually, and I believe that it falls right into the lap of Lee Whannell and Elizabeth Moss, because without these two working perfectly together, this movie would not work. Lee Whannell has a real keen eye of shooting things and really taking in the scenery of his shots. He definitely makes you well aware of how big the area is of the shot that you're shooting and taking full advantage of it. And also the way of basically shooting certain action sequences and situations like that. You could definitely see some of Upgrade in this film, especially towards the third act. And I think he did a masterful job in a director's eye of making this film feel very on the edge of your seat, like just nerve-wracking from the first scene to the last scene, and also kind of making you feel uneasy and kind of suffocating in a sense, because, and a lot of that also goes to the performance of Elizabeth Moss. She puts on a fantastic performance as Cecilia. For someone who has been in an abusive relationship, it is Elizabeth Moss's job to sell us and to bring us into her world of what she is going through or what she has gone through. And that's the biggest task that this movie has to give us. It's not that we have to believe that there's an invisible person in the house doing certain things. It's that Elizabeth Moss has to get us to follow and believe in the journey that she's having to go through, or her characters had to go through and is going through with this. There are certain scenes where, and I've never been personally in this kind of relationship. I've been in bad relationships, but when there's someone that you know has caused you great harm and they're nearby, you can just kind of feel their presence, even though you can't see them, you know they're near. And Elizabeth Moss does this beautifully. Like, there are times that even though he is invisible in this film, she knows where he is. She can feel his presence around her, even before she knows that he is doing what he's doing. And that level of uneasiness that she's having to deliver sells beautifully to the audience. There's never a moment of levity. There's maybe one scene of actual levity in this film. Other than that, it is on the edge of your seat, holding your breath, because you never know when something's going to happen or what's going to pop out. You're trying to scan everything on scene because you don't know exactly when the Invisible Man is going to mess with something or touch something or do something. So you're just as psychologically messed with in this film as Cecilia is. And like I said, Elizabeth Moss takes us on this journey. And for people who have been in a relationship such as this, not the I'm being, tortured by a invisible person, but someone who's been in an abusive relationship, whether it be physically, mentally, or emotionally, this is not going to be an easy watch for you, because it might bring back some kind of PTSD in a sense, and that's kind of what we're getting with Cecilia's character is she's been through so much that while the people around her, such as her sister and James and Sydney, Sydney is James' daughter, played by Storm Reed, they can never fully understand or grasp what she's gone through, and when she is kind of at a heightened state, she does look crazy. She does act kind of crazy, and they just kind of either have to deal with it or push her away. And it's a very frustrating throughout the film as you're watching this because you know what's going on. You see what's going on, but they don't. And when they start to turn on her, it definitely is a frustrating watch, but you know that was going to happen because of what the film is. But you like all these characters. The supporting cast is great. Everyone does a superior job in the film. That definitely helps Elizabeth Moss's character be even better as well. Like I said, Oliver Jackson Cohen. Like I said, he's not on screen a lot, but when he is physically on screen, he does a great job as Adrian. Harriet Dyer plays the sister. When she has her scenes, like I said, she does a pretty good job. Aldous Hodge and Storm Reed, to me, are the two standouts outside of Elizabeth Moss because they're the main support system for her because she's staying at their house. Thus, a lot of the stuff happening in the film happens there. And if you don't like James or Sydney, it doesn't work nearly as well. But the good thing is that you're kind of thrown into it rather quickly, so you kind of have to care about these characters rather fast. And they do a good job of getting you into that mindset and enjoying and liking these characters. So when things start to go crazy, you are actually worried about their well-being. They're not your generic horror film guy or characters where you're like, well, they're going to die off, and so we don't care about them. You want these characters to survive in the film. And when some don't, it's not like well, it's kind of like oh no, like you're literally taken aback when some of them don't survive, and it's that is a huge kudos to Lee Wanell and the script and for getting us to care about all the characters in the film, not just Elizabeth Moss. Like I said, the way it's shot, the way the invisible manness of the film is done incredibly well. Like I said, you're never at ease outside of maybe one moment in the film. And it's very, very early in the film. There are many twists and turns throughout the film as well to keep you on the edge of your seat. One other standout character, he's pretty much the only one I haven't mentioned, Michael Dorman. He plays Tom Griffin, Adrian's brother, and you just never know what side of the coin he is on. But the entire cast for this movie do a great job. This is definitely it's a small cast, but everyone does a great job and has a vital part in the film overall. Like I said, the twists and turns in the film, some are good, some they go a little bit too far. But for the most part, it isn't I hate to say enjoyable because this is not an enjoyable film, but in terms of how it is done, it is a very, very well done psychological horror. There's not going to be a lot of jump scares. There's not anything that's going to try to come out and scare you. It is more that physical being watched and psychological messing with your head kind of scare. And it does that in a very, very, very good, wow, my language has gone to crap in the middle of a sentence. It does a very good job of doing that. What does not work with Invisible Man, like I said, some of the twists and turns don't quite work. There are certain things that are done in the film that they never go back to. There's a certain sequence in the film that you would have to have this one character know that this character was going to do this, thus have to go to this one point, and then there's this one point, and then you never know exactly where it was going to go from there. So why was that even set up? There's other certain sequences that happen later in the film as well, where it's like, well, clearly Adrian's not dead, because if he was, then this wouldn't still be here, or this wouldn't happen, or someone would have done this kind of thing. Because no one has done it, clearly he's still alive. But they just kind of keep going with it. They don't stop to explain it. They don't stop to try to cover it up. You just kind of take it as it is. The ending, while I enjoyed it, it might not be something that a lot of people enjoy overall. It's kind of, I'm not going to say it gets wrapped up into a little bow because it doesn't, but it does kind of leave it open-ended, which can kind of annoy certain people who maybe just want this to be kind of its own little thing and not in potential little sequels and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just like I said, it's almost perfect in a sense of what it does, but then it kind of just gets a little too clever and it tries to get a little too slick and a little too smart. And because of that, there are some loose ends left in the film that just kind of are not necessarily even happenstance. It's just like, well, why? In order for you to have done this, you would have had to assume that this character would have done this, which would have led to this, and then this would have happened. But even then, what was your goal in having this happen? I know that's very vague, but when you see the movie, you guys will know exactly what I'm talking about. And like I said, certain parts later in the film, it's just like, well, clearly the character of Adrian is alive because ABC wouldn't have happened if he was dead. But going into my overall thoughts, like I said, that sounds very nitpicky. And at the time of watching it, I wasn't necessarily thinking of those things. But after the film, and I got to actually kind of sit and think about it, then those things started to pop up. But going to overall thoughts, I think Invisible Man is, as of right now, the best film of 2020. Albeit though we're probably about 5 actual good films into the year. I think Elizabeth Moss puts on a standout performance that should be talked about, should be recognized. She's basically the little Lupita Nyong'o of 2020 so far, and I feel like her performance should be recognized through the end of the year. I'm not saying that she should get a Best Actress nomination. I mean, we still have so much left of the year to come down that there could be other performances that could stand out that could, trump her, but she definitely should be in the nominations, or at least in the discussion near year's end, because this performance should not be dismissed. Coming into recommendations, if you guys like horror films, you guys like psychological horror films, I obviously 100% recommend this film. If you guys are fans of any of these actors, definitely go see this movie because they do a great job, and everyone kind of gets their own part to play. Overall, though, going to my review score, like I said, taking in some of the kind of things that they did a little too slick that just didn't work out, I'm going to give Invisible Man an 8.5 out of 10 because a lot of stuff worked really, really, really well. They just got a little too cute with certain things near the end, and that's why it's at an 8.5. But like I said, definitely go out of your way to see this movie. This is definitely the best horror film of 2020 so far. There have been a lot of stinkers coming out so far this year. So if you want to go see a good horror film, definitely go out of your way to see this one. If you have had a kind of relationship, an abusive relationship, this may not be the movie for you, because this might cause you some anxiety while watching it. But nonetheless, it's a great film. It's done by a great director. It's done by a great cast. And I can't commend it enough for what it did. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys feel like this review is worth sharing, go ahead and hit that share button. But most importantly, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on Sean's Movie Crusades. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next week, we've got 2 movies coming out. I know definitely one of them I'll be able to see. The other one, it kind of depends if it opens up in my area. First one being Pixar's Onward. Probably won't get to see it on Thursday night. It'll probably have to wait till Friday. So for everyone waiting for a review on Thursday night, you're probably gonna have to wait till Friday to see that review. I apologize, but something has come up next Thursday that I will not be able to see it then. But I definitely will be seeing it on Friday. The other film, if it's open in my area, I will check it out, and that is The Way Back. It's a Ben Affleck basketball film, which I'm actually really excited to see if it's in my area. If it's there, I'll watch it. You'll see a review, but you will definitely have a review of Onward coming this Friday. But yeah, I hope you guys check out Invisible Man, and until next time, in case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.